I'm Kelly and welcome to Kapowski Reads. And I am starting this vlog with a hopeful heart. This vlog is gonna end when I read a 5-star book. I have a whole bunch of books that I'm ridiculously excited about that I feel could be 5-star reads. So I am planning to make my way through them in search of my first 5-star read of the month. So this vlog could be 1 book long, it could be 12 books long. I hope it's not. I think I'd feel so sad if I had to read 12 5-star predicted books before one of them actually was 12 stars? 5 stars. I don't know. I'm gonna find out how long it takes. Let me know in the comments how many books you think I'm gonna have to read before I find a 5-star. I am going to be starting with Chain Gang All Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. I am ridiculously excited about this book. I have heard it described as sort of Hunger Games in a prison system, and the ultimate prize is freedom. I think it's gonna be really thought-provoking and distressing, and I expect I'm gonna get really angry at this book, but I think I'm gonna love it. The book is currently downstairs because I'm planning to go and just start reading it as soon as I finish filming, but I realised I wanted to film my intro first before I have read anything, because this way I have no knowledge of whether I am gonna love that book or not. And people are being really loud outside my house right now, so I'm gonna just stop the vlog now, go do some reading, and I think I'm going to report back maybe at halfway through, let you know my thoughts and feelings, and then my final verdict? No, my final rating and what I'm going to read next if it's not a 5-star read. But I'm also going to go and find out what all this noise is about. I'll come back. I am now halfway through Chain Gang All Stars. I am halfway through part 2, I think. I say I think because I'm not 100% sure how long part 2 is, but there are 3 parts in this book. The first part basically introduces you to all of the characters, and there are a lot of characters. I am finding it a little bit difficult to remember the characters who aren't Loretta or Stax, which are the 2, I would say, main characters in this book, at least so far. And part 2 is kind of sowing the seeds of unrest a little bit more. They were kind of peppered a bit in part 1, but part 2 is really, you know, some people are not okay with this going on. And I feel really weird saying I am enjoying this book because the subject matter is pretty horrific. So this book really is about the reformation of the prison system. It takes place in the United States. This is set in a world where prisoners can choose to take part in these games. The prisoners have to either have been condemned to execution or a sentence of over 25 years, and they can opt in to participate in the games for 3 years, and after 3 years they can win their freedom. Originally I was a little bit finding it a bit difficult to sort of see why people might put themselves in this position, because they're gonna have to kill, and that's something that every character so far has very much struggled with the whole idea of. But we get to know more about the prison system in this particular world, and it is absolutely horrific. It is just awful. The people are not treated as people. They are just treated as a thing, as a commodity. And you can really see after the abuse that these people have taken in prison why they would see the games as an escape, whether that is an escape from prison with the aim of getting their freedom, or whether it's an escape from life. It's so tough to read, but it's a really compelling story, and I want to keep reading. I want to know what's going to happen next. I've reached a sort of twist point and I'm like, oh no, because this is the kind of book where, well, I mean, the whole book is about people having to kill each other in a gladiatorial arena for the entertainment of people who have TVs on their fridges. Don't think that it's horrific to be watching. And I'm just worried because obviously people are gonna get killed and I don't want them to get killed because I've grown very, very attached to a lot of the characters in this book. I am loving the book so far. I'm really, really enjoying it, even though that feels really weird to say. I have cried many times in this book so far because it is just very difficult to read, but so far my expectations are being met and I'm really glad that I am reading it, even though it's hard. I have now finished Chain Gang All Stars and I have a lot of thoughts and feelings with regards to this book. I really enjoyed the characters. There were a lot of characters initially, but such is the nature of this book, they didn't all make it to the end because there were battles to the death and some of them gained a low freedom, which basically meant that they were killed. That pretty swiftly reduced the number of characters in the book. It mainly focused on Loretta Thurwar and Hamara Stacker, who was known as Hurricane Stacks. They were in a relationship. They were also teammates in this horrific blood sport. And I must admit, I just utterly grew to love the characters. I really did. And I know that they had done some terrible things to get them in to prison, but I really appreciated the way that this author made the characters so much more than their crimes. And I felt like it was really important that the characters in this book, the prisoners, had been convicted of the worst kind of crimes. There was nobody in this arena for, you know, stealing a loaf of bread. There were no Jean Valjeans, there were no Aladdins in this book. They were all very scary, terrifying crimes that had been committed. And I really thought that it was so almost heartbreaking to see the way that society had viewed these people as not even humans anymore. They were just competitors in the nation's fastest growing blood sport, and the entire concept of murder, because that's what these games were, the entire concept of that as entertainment was both horrific and also kind of terrifying. That this book was dystopian and yet it didn't feel far enough away from true life. It was very uncomfortable to read, but I think that that was the whole point. This book was supposed to be uncomfortable reading. I really enjoyed the footnotes as well. I do not normally enjoy footnotes in a book. I'm very much usually of the opinion that if it's important to the story, it should be in the story. But for this book, I felt like the footnotes worked because they were almost an aside, like an additional little nugget of information. My enjoyment of the book wouldn't have been less without the footnotes, but it gave me a little bit extra, a little bit more sort of a rounding to the prison system, to the prisoners. I also really appreciated the way that going into this book, I did wonder, well, why would anyone sign up to this? Why would you sign up to kill people, or, you know, be killed? But the book goes on to explain what the prison system is like in this world, and it is just absolutely horrific, just awful, so just terrible. And you can see why people would in this world have just gone, I will take any out that I can. I really enjoyed the pacing. It was split into 3 different parts, and the first part just sort of introduced the whole concept of the arena, of the sport, and introduced us to a lot of the characters. And the second part really sort of gave an insight into the unrest surrounding this horrific form of entertainment, because while it was a super popular sport, there were a lot of people that were like, no, this is not entertainment, these these are human beings. We don't want, no, this is completely wrong. And I really like the way that some people in this book were being challenged to think differently and to make some very unpopular statements. And part three just broke my wee heart. Part 3 was the third act. So in this book, all throughout the book, we know that Loretta is just a couple of battles away from freedom. So you know the way the book is gonna go. It started with Loretta's first ever game and builds right up to her final head-to-head. And I had to put this book down. I wanted to keep reading it, but I had to put it down because I couldn't see through my feelings. It turns out that my waterproof mascara is not as waterproof as I first thought. It is not waterproof against my sad tears. I was drowning in my own black blobs of tears because mascara. I was somewhat hysterical reading this because I was very emotional, because the last maybe 50 pages of this book, I had grown so attached to the characters, which is a rookie mistake. Don't grow attached to characters in a book where the entire concept is they will have to kill each other, because you're gonna get upset because someone's gonna die. And I was distraught. I had to put the book down and I didn't want to. I wanted to finish it, but I also didn't want to finish it. And I read this entire book with that sort of tear between wanting to read the book and wanting to look up spoilers because my wee heart couldn't take it. I didn't look up spoilers. And after having finished the book, I don't think that looking up spoilers could have even helped me, because I was just sobbing regardless. I feel it was really important that I didn't know a great deal about what these people had done. And I think that that was so important as a reader, to go in knowing that these people had been convicted, not necessarily correctly, of horrific crimes, horrific and violent crimes. I have a quote. I took a note. I took a quote of this book because I feel like this quote probably best sums up what I'm trying to say, and I'm saying it really badly. When humans saw other humans, they felt bad for whoever had gotten sliced up that week. When humans saw a criminal die, well, that was different. And I think that that pretty much summarises what the people in this world felt. I think it was really important as a reader to go in seeing them as people first and then criminals second. I also really enjoyed the writing style of this book. It was a dark book. It wasn't, you know, joyful to read, but there were moments of sort of silliness, the sort of banter between the chain gang and the camaraderie between some of them as well. Like, they're in this horrible situation and they're forming their little tight-knit communities because that's all they have to cling on to keep their humanity. And I think this book was absolutely spectacular and more people need to read it. I feel like it's super popular already. I've seen a lot of people talking about it. I have been very careful not to watch any. I have a whole stack of review videos that I'm going to go and watch now because I didn't want to cloud my judgment before I read the book. And I just feel this book was so important. It was so important and it was just utterly fantastic, but devastating. Just devastating to read. But I'm so glad I did read it. 5 stars. So this vlog will contain 1 book and I'm feeling a little smug at picking a 5-star book. I feel smug or just knowing my reading tastes. One of the two. If you've read this book, let me know. And if you're planning to read it, please let me know. And also get some tissues if you're anything like me and sob hysterically at everything. I went through many, many Kleenex. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!